Dude, Catfish 101, something like
At
that.
Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah,
Catfish Fishing 101.
yeah. Can one of you guys check and see if this is live? Anybody got? I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, it is live. Hello. Can you guys see me? I don't know how to do this. Okay. What time we got?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock on that. All right. Well, let's get this show on. Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, they all hear us. You good? Okay. Well, for those that were here earlier, welcome back, and for those that weren't, nice to meet you. My name is Mark Cooper. I'm the host of Knox Fishing, and I am your resident goofy ginger fisherman. So you guys on YouTube see us? I'm not really going to look at the screen, guys, so you just have to bear with me. Katie will look at it every now and then. But so, welcome to the Kodak Bass Pro Shop here in Sevierville, Tennessee. I want to thank Robbie Snow, who is the boat sales manager here, for inviting me out here. We've been working on some stuff through Bass Pro, and we're trying to get catfishing and trophy catfishing out to more people, because I think it's one of the best things in the country available for us to do that anybody can do. So anybody can go and catch a big giant catfish, or you can go catch a bunch of them. We've got stuff for literally everything. You can go fishing with chicken livers, cut bait, live bait, and we're going to kind of talk about all of that today. So, who am I? Well, I'm Mark Cooper. I'm the host of Top Notch Fishing. I'm not a guide or anything, but I do love fishing. And I've been catfishing probably for the last 10 years, pretty hardcore. And I got started in college and started the first college team ever at UT, and it just kind of didn't really go anywhere from there, but I met all my best friends from there. And for about 7 years after that, I worked in sales. Didn't hate it, but it wasn't my thing, and I was always drawn to fishing because it's just something I'm super passionate about. And then I'll start this seminar with, I don't know everything about everything. I have plenty of friends who are way better cat fishermen than me and way better striper fishermen than me, but I do love sharing how to catch catfish to the best of my knowledge, and I try to be friends with and surround myself with the most talented anglers so that I can learn from them and then share it with others. So, what are we going to talk about today? Seminar overview, why we fish. This is something that, I really think about hardcore. I mean, we're in this giant multi-million-dollar building, and there's people all across the world who love fishing for all different kinds of fish. And, whether you get into it for catching big giant fish, or somewhere to have peace and tranquility, or the challenge of it, you really got to determine why you're in it first. And why I'm in it, I love sharing it with others. And it always gets me emotional too. But I love being able to share chasing these big giant fish with other people and showing people how to do it, because you don't have to have a whole lot of money or the nicest boat in the world to go and do this. You can if you have that available to you, but I've gotten pretty good at doing it on a budget and with minimal resources. So that's what I try to show people how to do. The bread and butter of it. That literally everyone can do throughout the whole country. So what we're going to talk about today is, this is going to be kind of, if you watched the striper fishing seminar or you were here earlier, we're going to talk about bait again, because the same bait you use to catch stripers, the same bait you use to catch catfish. So take you a nap if you were here earlier, and when we're going through the gizzard shed and skid jack stuff, I got to do it again because everybody else didn't see that catfish. We're going to talk about bait, we're going to talk about the tackle, we're going to talk about catfish, what they do, their seasonal habits, all the different ways to fish for catfish, and then we're going to talk about conservation as well, because catfishing is the fastest growing form of fishing in the United States, and it's the second most popular one in the country. So, let's talk about bait. Actually, why you catfish, I just went over all that. And, let's see. I guess I'll show some pictures because I forgot to do that in the last seminar. I know it's probably weird to sit down, but like, there's so many different types of catfish you can fish for, different methods, different places you can go and do it, and it really has something for everyone. So here's the pretty camera lady, Katie, with her personal best blue cat that we caught down in Alabama about 2 weeks ago. And then here's her daughter with her first flathead, and she screamed and jumped away from it when it came up. We went jugging, and she had never been fishing before really in her life. We were like, all right, let's go see if we can catch a big catfish. And when it came out of the water, she was like, ah, I freaked out. So you can do it with kids, or you can do it with your buddies. You can camp out on the lakeside, or you can go fish with a $100,000 boat. It's really got it all. This is one of my good buddies, Dick, with a giant flathead. And then, now I talk about bait. Okay, so this is for catfishing, probably the second most important thing. You got to understand where catfish are at before you can catch it first. But with catfish, you got to have bait most of the time. There's some fishing flatheads that you can use artificial for, but I'm not talking about that. That's like over my head. We're going with bait. And the primary forms of bait for catfish are gizzard shad, redfin shad, alewives, skipjack, trout, brown suckers, carp, and all manner of other cut bait. You can use game fish too. In certain states, if you catch it on rod and reel legally and it's the right length and you don't cut it up. But we're going to talk about mainly shad and skipjack and the brim and suckers and carp. So, these are gizzard shad, and that's a bluegill, I don't know how I put that in there. And then these are some other forms of bait. That's a redfin or sucker here on the left. And then this is a white bass, which we can use in Tennessee for cut bait or live bait. You can catch it on rod and reel legally. And rough fish, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So, let's talk about shad. Shad is the most popular forage fish throughout the whole country. They are literally in almost every single lake, river, stream, all across North America. And they are probably the go-to bait for most people around the country in general. So where do we find shad and how do we catch it? That's what we're going to talk about. So shad, generally, you can catch in these large tributary systems. Now this is an image from Navionics. You can pull this up on the internet. Just Google Navionics web app, or you can pull it up on your phone. I think it's a subscription service now, or it's $10. I'm not sure. But essentially, it shows you all the bottom contours of the lakes and rivers throughout the whole country, and it even shows saltwater stuff. So this is how we look at the bottom of the lake and determine where the fish are. Now, we're going to be talking about shad right now, and particularly gizzard shad. We want bigger baits. So a good rule of thumb when you're trying to find gizzard shad is you want a shallow muddy bay with a deep creek channel leading into it. So shad have to have a path to come off the main channel to go back in somewhere. So you can see down here, this is a creek channel leading off the main channel, and then it opens up into a big, giant, flat bay. This is really important. Some creek channels are really narrow, they're just narrow all the way back, and they don't ever open up. This is a feeding bay for gizzard shad. So it's really shallow, it's muddy, it has a lot of plankton in it, which is what they feed on. So you also got these other creek systems running into it, which makes the water bite. And that's what you really want for gizzard shad. They can be super spooky in clear water and really hard to throw a net on. So you really want to look for that same, like just muddy, poopy water for gizzard shad. That's where I have my best luck. You can also catch gizzard shad at dams, spillways, and hot water discharges. I'm not going to talk about that a ton because I try to keep people away from those areas as much as possible because they are dangerous. But you can catch them in those areas as well, right up against the dam. Now, what do shad do? Water temp-wise, in the colder months, they're deep generally in the earlier part of the day because it's colder, and shad are really fragile fish. So they're generally out in these deeper creek channel sections until it starts to warm up throughout the day during the colder months. And when it warms up, it's a nice, warm, sunny day, they'll be pushed all the way back in 2-3 feet of water most times, and you can see them flipping on the surface. If they're not back in the deep water or in the shallow water, they're out in the deep, and we're going to talk about how to catch those. In the warm months, low light conditions are your best friend. So early morning, late afternoon, and at night, are the best times to catch shad. They're more active, there's more plankton on the surface of the water for them to feed on. And when it's low light and less visibility, they're easier to throw a net on and they're not as spooky. So this is what you want to look for when you're looking for a gizzard shad. Now you can replicate this from California to New York. You find a creek system or a tributary system, deep off the main channel, opens up into a bay, and it's got sustained water in the back. It doesn't have to have it, it's just better if it does. You can find a lot of gizzard shad back in there. And later we'll talk about it. There's lots of big giant catfish in these areas, feeding on them certain times of the year. But that's kind of your shad locations. Here's a couple of zoomed in views. Really shallow water section. This is if they're very active. It's a nice day and they're up in here. And this is probably your all around what you're going to look for shad spots. Pretty deep going back in, 10, 15, 20 feet, and then shallows back out to 10 to 5 feet is the best area to net them, I've found. When they're really shallow, they're spookier and it's harder to get that net on. So you want a little bit of depth to get your net on, but you can also get them out deep, which is what we're going to talk about. Shad catching methods. So this is a repeat from earlier striper fishing. Sorry for boring you guys to death, but we got to cover it again. So cast net. Go as big as you can go legally in your state. So in Tennessee, we can use a 10-footer. That's what I use, an 8 to 10, it just depends. And you want the heaviest net possible when you're netting shad. So it's physically more difficult to throw it because it's heavier, but it sinks faster and you catch bait more quickly because they can't run away from it. So heavy net. If you're targeting bigger gizzard shad, you want a larger mesh size, so 1 5/8 inch, or just like a 1 inch or a 5/8 inch net, or a 1 inch mesh size, so that the little bait still gets stuck in there. Now, when you want those deep water shad, especially this time of the year, a lot of you guys online are asking me how to catch shad deep this time of year. Well, you got to mark them on your graph first. We'll talk about that here in a second, but you got to have a net that will stay open as it sinks down deep. And typically when I'm catching them 15 plus feet deep, all the way down to 35, you're throwing a tape net. Now you can make your own tape net. I bought this one, but a tape net is essentially a cast net with this mesh wrapped all around the end of it above the weight. And as it sinks down to the bottom, the water is pushing against that mesh and keeping it open as it sinks. So it sinks more slowly, but it'll stay open as you let it sink down. So tape nets are good for deep water bait. It'll change your game. Now we're going to look at what do gizzard shad and threadfin shad look like on a graph. Both of these pictures are of that. On the left, we can see the gizzard shad. They're individual little dots. They're differentiated, so it's not a big blurry mesh of them, but you can tell that they're individual larger shad. Based on the depth of water, you can kind of get an idea of how big they are. 14 feet of water there, like those are big gizzard shad, 8 to 12 inch shad. So that's what you're looking for in your graph. This is a downscan imaging. This is 2D. When you're looking at it on 2D, depending on the color palette you have on your graph, they usually show up red on pretty much all bright color. And then on side scan, you can see them here. Now, threadfin shad, if you're looking for those, like your channel catfishing or you just want to use smaller baits, they look like a big mist, so a smoky mist area. These type of schools you can generally find over super deep water, and a lot of the times, especially winter time when the water gets really, really cold, like happened a couple weeks back, we'll have a big shad kill and a lot of these things will die. And there'll be a crazy feeding frenzy right after that as these things die when the water temps get below 40. You have some really good fishing for a few days, and then it'll really suck for a couple of weeks because they gorge from all these dead shad. But if you're fishing main lake stuff and you're seeing this on your graph and this stuff, you're in a good area. I always try to be near the bait because the big fish are going to be near their food source. They have to be. So my favorite bait, what you guys know me a lot for, skipjack herring. And look at this goober. I look even dirtier there than I do now. That's hard to do, but These things are a blast to catch, even if you don't use them for bait. I mean, all my buddies love catching them. I love taking new people to come catch them. That's the world record skipjack I caught back in college. And yeah, we chopped it up and used it for bait immediately after that photo. So, the rods and reels we use are really important for catching skipjack because most of your time as a catfish angler, you are trying to catch daggone bait. And everybody hates doing it, so I try to do it as quickly and the most efficiently as possible. And to do that, we've got some special gear that's, not so special, but like if you don't know what it is, then you don't know. I want to tell you because I do this all the time. I'm a bait dealer as well, licensed bait dealer. So I do this a lot, and this is the best way I've found to do it. Here we've got 3 different rods. I don't know if you can see it on the live stream, but each one of these rods is rigged with a different method of fishing for skipjack. The main method that most people, and myself included, catch them on is the sabiki rig style, like this. So you want a longer rod, 7 foot or above, fast action tip, so it doesn't bend like a rubber band. You want some backbone to it, and then you want to run braided line, which is hugely important because skipjack look like a tarpon and they fight like one and they bite like one and they come off just as bad and they will drive you absolutely crazy. So to make sure that doesn't happen as often, braided line will be your savior. I use this Suffix 832, 15 to 20 pound test. It throws really far and there's no stretch, so when you set the hook, it usually stays in them. You don't really have to set the hook most of the time, it's just they're there. And then we use a 25-pound leader. You don't want to go shy on the leader or small because when you're fishing multiple jigs like this, they'll get tangled up really badly when you're throwing it. When you sit there trying to pick it apart where there's 500 skipjack busting everywhere. So you use a thicker leader line, 20 to 25 pounds, that's fluorocarbon, and that prevents tangles fast. And then you can catch a ton. So that's the first rig. And then the second most popular way of catching them would be the pulley spoon and sinker rig. It is a Carolina rig, and you can throw it a mile. This is best used below dams because you can use a heavy weight to keep it down on the current seams, and you can throw it a billion miles if you're from the bank. So this is what you really, if you're a bank fisherman, you need to start doing this with the braid line and longer rods. This is a 2-ounce trolling sinker weight. So it's got a swivel on the top, swivel on the bottom, and just super easy to use. Put your leader line on there, 20, 30 inches of leader line, something like that, and then your pulley spoon, different colors, different sizes. You just play with it and see what you like. Chartreuse and pink and white are generally the best for me, and I use the medium-sized one to the small one 90% of the time. And then this next one, kind of a secret, not really a secret, but a lot of times during the summer, skipjack will be blowing up literally everywhere below the dams or on the main lakes, and you'll throw straight into them with a speaker rig or pulley spoon, and they won't hit anything. And when that happens, you gotta bust out the old popping cork. And this is just a redfish popping cork, and you tie basically a sabiki rig below it with your jigs, and then I put a pulley at the bottom. It's a little bit heavier, and it stays a little bit straighter. And you just pop it across the top like you're working a popping cork for a redfish. And when they won't hit anything else and they're blowing up everywhere and nobody's catching anything, this is what you throw. And then another hugely important thing that I just about forgot about is gear ratio on your reels. Now, everybody who's been skipjack fishing anywhere in the country, have been next to somebody at the dam or at the steam plant or on the bank where that person's catching 10 times more than everybody else, so they're using the same jigs. And 99% of the time, it's because their reel is either slower than everybody else's or faster. And that's just what's doing it. So you need to pay attention to the gear ratio in your reel. I have 3 with me most of the time. One's faster, one's a little bit slower, and one's really slow if they're very inactive. So the active skipjack, especially in the summer, use your fast reel and you can burn it. And as you get into the winter months like we've got right now, and the water temps in the 40s, you gotta go slow and finesse, just like your bass fishing, but for skipjack. So that's your cheat code for catching skipjack. Now we're gonna talk about where you catch them at. The number one most fished for place for skipjack is at the dams. So when are they at the dams? When are you going to catch skipjack at the dams? Well, it generally starts in early March and runs all the way to the late fall. And why do they come up to the dam in the spring? Well, they have to spawn. And when they spawn, they run up the river, and then the dam stops them, and there they are. And they like highly oxygenated cold water, and that's what you find below your dam in the spillways. Now, you don't have to be all the way up at the boils like you can see there to catch the skipjack. You can be further downstream on the current seams where it's really fast water and next to slower moving water, and they'll be right on those seams jumping bait. I would start out throwing a sabiki rig when you're below the dams to see if they're easy and really active and up top, and then if they're not, switch over to your fully spoon rig with a heavier weight, let it sink down to the bottom, and work it real slow back, and that'll get you to bite nobody else will. Now the main lake stuff, this is like a little bit more advanced, but I like teaching people this because sometimes they're just not at the dam. A lot of the times, like, there'll be a billion people at the dam, it's hard to fish there, or you're nowhere near them. You got to know where to catch them on a main lake. And so, if you catch them on the main lake, you're looking for those big schools of thread fin that we looked at earlier on the graph. And those can generally be found in creek systems, flats off the main channel right next to a ledge or a creek channel, and then the points running off of those. And that's where you can generally find your skipjack. You'll have to run around, and basically if I'm going to a new lake and I'm trying to catch shad or skipjack, I literally will drive around the whole lake until I mark a bunch of stuff in my graph or I see them busted. And then I'll start fishing there. I won't just start fishing each creek because you can be in them for 2 hours. I'll go around and try to find the active ones if there are any active ones. And sometimes you can see birds diving, but not a lot of times. Now, if you're in a river situation, like we have here in East Tennessee, not anywhere near a dam, skipjack can stack up on the shoals, which are the rocks that come up across the river. They'll sit right in behind those shoals and wait for bait fish to come over the top. They'll be on the current seam, so if you've got an outside bend in the river channel, and there's a rock sticking out or a little point or something like that, there'll be an eddy behind it, they'll be on that, and then, the eddy current seam is about the same thing. So that's what you really want to look for on the river system. Again, I've got a lot more in-depth stuff on my YouTube page than me actually out there doing this. Other bait options for catfishing, if you don't have skipjack and you can't catch skipping shad because you're from the bank, it's more difficult. Sunfish are readily available throughout the whole country. They're easy to catch, and in most states you can use it for bait. I don't know which states you can. White bass, also great. They're excellent live bait for flathead catfish. It's basically a giant bluegill and it doesn't die after it gets hit a million times. You catch them with skipjack tackle or shad rats, which are a crankbait, minnows, things of that nature. And then you got your suckers and redfish or rough-fish that you catch on catfish and worms. And then throughout the country you have white perch. I don't have those here, but those are really popular. And one thing to always remember is that catfish are cannibals. They will eat other catfish. I had a day below here in Chattanooga where I couldn't catch a skipjack at all, and I caught a channel cat, and that's all we had for bait, me and my buddy Travis. And we're like, oh, well, let's see what we can do. And we caught 3 or 4 fish over 40 and a 250 bumping channel cat, pieces of channel cat, because that's all we had. So like if you can't get these premium baits, like don't be afraid to chop up a catfish or just something to put your bait in the water, because with catfish you ain't going to catch them with a bare hook, might as well use something. Alright, so catfishing gear. Everybody likes to talk about this. There's been many rod wars, rod holder wars, multi-bar rod wars, just everything on the internet. I don't get any of that stuff. But I do like to use good gear that gets the job done. And in terms of rods, I use Big Cat Fever. So there are many different models of Big Cat Fever rods. These are Hellcats. I'm about to knock everything over, knock this camera over. But these are the Hellcat series rods. Very limber tip, but then it bends to a nice backbone. They glow in the dark, and they're built really heavy duty for catfishing. And then you've also got the original. I'm gonna break everything. Looks like the original big cat feeder rod. Again, lots of different rods in the market. I'm not here to argue about rods. A lot of them will do the job, but Big Cat Fever, I can tell you, has done more for the sport of catfishing than almost any other company out there, so I work with them. And then terminal tackle, circle hooks, your leader line, 100-pound test leader line, that's what you want to use. Catfish don't care about line diameter. You can even use glow-in-the-dark line. They don't care. You just want something super heavy duty so they don't break. And then circle hooks, yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to skip the planer boards thing right now because we're going to talk about that here in a second. Now we're going to look at different catfish fishing methods. And one of the most often asked questions I get about catfishing is catfishing from the bank. A lot of people who do this don't have boats. So I'm going to show you how to find bank fishing spots on the internet that you can go and fish anywhere. And then we're going to talk about anchor fishing, spot locking, vertical drifting, dragging, bumping, just all different kinds of catfish. So bank fishing for catfish. What are some basics you need to know about it? Well, when you're fishing from the bank, one of the most difficult problems you have to solve is being able to get your bait out as far as possible. And there's several different ways of doing that. You can have a surf rod and be able to cast it really far. Or you can have something I've been working on lately with an RC boat with a planer board clip attached to the back of it that drives your bait all the way out in the channel and you just pop it and your bait falls down. So this is in the works right now. It's not very cost effective. They're pretty expensive, but man, it works. And I've been experimenting with that. Haven't put anything on the internet yet about doing this for catfish, but you guys are the first to hear about it. RC boat, planer board, clip on the back, drive it out there with your bait full open, pop it, and it sinks right down wherever you want it. So, something to think about. Now, how do we find spots to fish for catfish? The tools you want to use are your Navionics app, Google Earth, and Onyx. Now, the Navionics app is how you look at the bottom contours of the lake, okay? Google Earth is how you can see what it looks like, and on the outside, like there's a park there or somewhere public you can fish. And the next level to that is Onyx, which is a hunting app. And that shows you who owns that area, if it's public land, the name of the people who own it. And from there, you can say, okay, this is public land, this is a wildlife management area, or this is just TVA land or something like that, so I can be there. And some of these places, a lot of people don't fish from the bank because they're hard to get to. You got to walk in a long way. But there's some of the places to fish because nobody fishes there, and you have access to deep water. And that's the caveat there. Like, you need to have access to deep water when you're bait fishing from the bank. And that's really hard to do. And again, to make that happen, this is something to look at here. But also you can find the spots that are really close to the bank with deep water, with these apps, maybe on Google Earth and Onyx. So let me show you a couple of spots that you can bank fish. These are just random places throughout the country. There's a point here with a deep ledge all the way around it, and it drops off of the 50 feet. This is about 20 yards from the bank to this deep hole. So you can come and fish an area like this from the bank and line it with rod holders and fish this deep water and shallow water. This is an excellent bank fishing spot. And here, this is just a random screenshot. I'm not going to tell you where it's at, but it's on one of the most renowned catfish lakes in the country. You can ignore it that cool, but it has a fishing pier. And I found this by looking at the map, the lake's map on Navionics, and saw this pier coming out. And it looked like a parking lot was there. And then I got on Google Earth and saw that it's a boat ramp, and you have access to deep water. Now this spot right here is that photo right there. You've got a roadbed, point, submerged structure, and you can hit all that from the bank. So that is your crash course on finding spots from the bank to catfish. And when you're fishing from the bank, again, you got to get it out there. If it's just casting, short of the leader line is better because you can throw it further. And if you've got some money, you can buy an RC boat. Now the next form of catfishing, we're kind of going to go up from bank fishing to the, not the easiest, but like the less in-depth form of casting fishing is precision anchoring. And this is basically where you mark some structure on the bottom. This is a hump out in the middle of the channel with a tree on it and some rocks, and you can see the fish all over it. So if we're wanting to precision anchor on this spot, and we've got current, we'll mark a waypoint on this, and then come upstream of it, 75 to 100 feet, drop our anchor or deploy our trolling motor, and then bring ourselves back within casting range of it. And we'll cast all the way in front of this. And this is just a rock pile and a tree, but you can do this with all kinds of different structures. And that's essentially the gist of precision anchoring. You really need current to do it, but it's easier so you have to drop some anchors. But if you just do this, you don't have a $2,000 big coated trolling motor. You just got a boat and a couple cinder blocks and a cheap fish finder. You can come out here and do this. Or if you don't even have a fish finder, you got a John boat with a 5 horsepower motor and a couple cinder blocks, you could go on Navy on it and find these humps on there and anchor up on them and fish. That's how I did it for years, because I didn't have the equipment to do it. And all these different things you can anchor on trees, rock piles, man-made structure like barges on the bottom, submerged bridges are some of the best things to fish, humps, holes, river bends. All of these you can anchor up. This is bread and butter cast fishing. Like, this is how everybody gets started in general. And here we're going to look at a couple other images of things you can precision anchor on to fish. This is a ledge right here dropping from 20-something feet down to 70. There's a couple of giant trees on it. Like, this is just premium. If you want to catch a big giant blue or a flathead, if you find this in the winter months, fall, early spring, this is like primo condition to fish right here. And this is just a submerged bridge down the bottom. These are very hard to fish because there's a lot of rebar and stuff near them. You can anchor on them, but a lot of times when you've got your bait down on the bottom and the snatch stuff, they get snagged. One way you can fish it is coming to either side of it, left or right, and sometimes on top, and dropping your bait straight down and just spot locking right over the top of it with your trolling motor. Now, if you're doing that, you've got to crank your drag down. Because if you have a fish come out of one of these things and eat it, he's going to try to take you straight in it. It's basically grouper fishing, but catfish. And that is like spot locking on heavy coat. And you can do that on this or anything else. But you really want to do this in areas where it's so nasty on the bottom, like you throw a weight out, it's going to get snagged. I really like doing that, and the takedowns you get are just gigantic on this type of stuff. Now, I'm going to talk about spawn time catfish. Nobody likes to fish. Everybody hangs it up because they think they can't catch them or they're not doing anything, and when the movie draws in, they to drop them. This, at least last year, has become one of my favorite times to fish. Most people just stop this time of year because they think they can't get them to bite. And a lot of the times it's because they're too dang deep. And these fish are up in 2 or 3 feet of water. So this right here is a creek off a main lake. And it's not showing it right here, but there's a lot of trees that stick out of the water all in here. Now catfish, specifically flatheads, are really big cavity nesters and blues. So this is a prime spawning area for catfish. Now, all the catfish don't go on the spawn at one time, and they don't come off the spawn at one time. They're constantly, it's kind of like an ebb and flow type thing. So I discovered this spring and summer that these areas, if you fish them with super fresh cut bait, like you caught it that day, or live bait, right at dark and in the dark a little bit, can be some of the best catfishing you can ever experience. And the fish that are up in here, they're only there for one reason. They're either feeding or they're there spawning. And the ones that are spawning, they're not going to eat your stuff. The ones that are there feeding are going to absolutely slam all your rods. So what you're going to want to look for on these areas is pull up your Navionics app or your Humminbird app or whatever with your weight map. Go around all these big creek systems off the main river channel. The best ones are the ones with the deepest water access. So if there's like a giant 60, 70 foot hole or trench outside of the main channel, and it's got a big deep 30 to 40 foot creek channel leading from it back into the shallow section, those are the best ones. And this opens up into a big bay. And again, just like the shad, when it's really narrow going back in there all the way to the back, it doesn't like they don't seem to feed as much in it. But when it opens up into a bigger flat, it seems like that becomes a feeding area. And what I was looking for was stained water. So this is a creek dumping in muddy water all the time. This particular creek was muddier than any other creek on the whole lake. And it always had gizzard shad in it. It had a ton of trees all in it. And like we bank fished it, and we anchored up in the center, we did all kinds of stuff, and we just caught the heck out of fish. And we replicated this on 3 or 4 different lakes and had the same result everywhere. So don't be afraid to fish the spawn, and most of the time if you ain't catch anything during the spawn, it's too dang deep. March, starting in March. And then here's the latest craze that everybody's nuts about, and it is one of the more fun ways to catch a catfish, and that's dragging. There's no throwing an anchor, there's no snagging stuff up as bad, and that is dragging planer boards or catfish, just like your striper fishing or your walleye fishing. There are a lot of different planer boards on the market, but basically the gist you want to look for is a board that'll pull out the furthest at the slowest speeds. So if the board won't pull out at 0.5 and you got to go all the way up to 0.7 or 1 mile per hour to get that bait to pull out, you're going to be missing a whole lot of catfish because you're just going too fast. Sometimes they want it too fast, but if you're going too fast and you're not getting bit, you got to be able to slow it back down. And these alpha boards pull out really far at low speed. So you can get a whole skipjack out way away from the boat, multiple of them, going 0.3 to 0.4, which is really slow. And then you can speed it up, and then it'll do that too. That's the easy part. But basically your dragging weights, this is again very simple. And one thing cool about catfishing is that you can make almost all your own stuff rig-wise is your dragging setup here. So we've got a 3-way swivel right there. And this is just a dirty South dragon weight that I bought. You can make your own. You can make slinky weights. And we've got a 100-pound leader line going to a chain swivel, and then 100-pound leader line again down to our float, and then our circle hook. And I've got some with double hook rigs. I've got some with rattles. You just got to experiment with it. Like a float works, but that is essentially your dragging rig. And what that does, it just pulls along the bottom, goes up over rocks, goes up over points, goes up over humps. And basically, it's a crawler harness rig that they use for walleye for forever. Like this stuff's been around for forever. People adapted it to catfishing, or the walleye guys adapted it from catfishing to walleye fishing. But recently it just got really popular, and then people started pairing that with planer boards and spread it out like striper guys. And now you can carry or fish a whole giant area of lake at one time. Whereas if you're anchor fishing or drifting, you can't do. So the planer boards are a huge, huge thing. And you can catch fish all year dragging. It seems to work best when the water temp's a little bit higher, like when you get the winter months and it's colder, they're less active, you gotta go a little slower, but you can catch catfish dragging boards on the main lake all year, or in river sections, and even in current. You just gotta have a heavier dragging rig. Boat speed is probably one of the most important things other than where you're fishing with this. If you're going too fast or too slow, that's the reason why you're not getting bit most of the time. So if you start out at 0.5 and you're not getting bit, and you go up to 0.75 and you're still not getting bit, maybe you need to bump it back down a little bit slower. They're inactive. Or if they're really active and you're not getting bit slower, you just need to go faster. So that's a huge thing to experiment with when you're out dragging for catfish. And then we're going to look at locations to drag. Dragging for catfish is an excellent way to pick up active fish, the ones that are feeding. And when I'm dragging for catfish, I'll generally start shallow, back in a big creek system, and fish for the active fish. So there's lots of different ones across the country. This is just another one from around here. But this is a shallow bay, or a deep creek leading to a shallow bay, and it opens up to a flat, and there's not a lot of timber and stuff to snag on before. Because if you're snagging up all the time, it's really hard to do this. But this is just a big sand flat out here with lots of bait on it. And I usually start shallow back in these creeks and drag all the way out until I hit the main channel. And then if I'm not getting bit out in the creeks, we'll start deep at that point. Ideally, you want to catch them up shallow. Those are the active fish, or on these flats next to the main channel. But if you're not getting bit out there, go out deep and start dragging the main river ledge. And generally, if you don't get bit out there dragging, you need to slow down anchor fish, spot lock, something like that, because they're just not active enough to hit it. And then again, here is another look at a topographical map of the riverbed. This is somewhere on Watchbar. You've got an inside river channel bend right here with a flat coming off it. And you've got your main deep water river section right here and an island right here. So if I was fishing this, I would start up on top of this flat and drag it. I don't get anything on a couple of passes. I would reel up and then start going out on this ledge and then progressively deeper and deeper until I run into it. You start out shallow because those are the active fish. You want to catch the active ones because they're easy. But then if they're not up there, you got to go deeper, progressively down until you run into them. So that's, again, just a good area to fish. There's not a whole lot of rough rocks or rises. Really easy to snag on that stuff. Some guys are really good at dragging on the nasty stuff. They're just better than me at it. And I'm sure they can comment or watch them live on how to do that better than me. I'm not the end all be all. But this right here is my favorite way to catch a catfish, and that's bumping. And for bumping, you got to have super heavy current, whether that's below a dam, on the Mississippi River, on the Missouri River, on the James, any of these other rivers. There's a lot of current, and the rod is in your hand the whole time. It's basically finesse fishing for a giant catfish. It's like ever fishing a Ned rig for bass or a hair jig for walleye or something like that. It's that, but for catfish. So rig-wise, it looks almost identical to a bumping rig, except you have a dropper loop here on your three-way that you attach your weight to at the bottom. And you tie a dropper loop here on the bottom. You can look that up online how to do that. So you can switch out your weights really quickly. And why do you want to switch your weight out? Well, when you're bumping, your weight is what determines how well it stays on the bottom, picks up, and moves back. If you're too heavy, you get snagged a lot. If you're too light, it won't stay on the bottom. You really need to be making constant bottom contact. So when you're bumping and when you're trying to figure out what the appropriate speed or weight is to get it down on the bottom, all of that is from feel. And if you're using like an e-glass rod or something like that, you don't have as much sensitivity. I like using a fiberglass rod or a rod designed for bumping because you can feel everything on the bottom while you're doing that. And speed-wise, I try to get, half the current speed or just to where I can keep it on the bottom, and when I bump and pick it up, it'll move it back 3 or 4 feet and drop back down. And you can bump it up again and let it out. That's basically the gist of what you want to do, to walk the bait back. You can also catch them right below the boat bumping, bottom bouncing, but it seems like it's more effective when you're getting that bait to come up and wash back naturally and drop back down. You got to experiment with the speed of your boat and the weight size to get the right grip down. So that's bumping. Some people say it's seasonal. I don't think it is. I've caught them during the dead of winter and the middle of summertime. So if you've got heavy flow and there's catfish in the area, I'm always going to start bumping first, like super heavy flow, because it's the most fun way to catch a catfish. It'll rip it out of your hand, like that. So that is the basic gist of bumping. And it looks like I got through that one way quicker than what I expected, but that is essentially Catfish Fishing 101. And those are the different methods you can use to start out catching big giant fish. Now, there's a whole lot more nuances to this, different graphs, different trolling motors, different anchors, all these other things. Like if you're new to it or you're seasoned, that basically gives you a look at the bait you need, where to catch the bait, where to go fish at, what tackle you need to use, and all of that to start catching big giant catfish. And then remember, fishing's kind of like life. Some days suck, some days are great. You just gotta keep going and it'll eventually be good. That's all I got. Any questions? Appreciate it.
We didn't talk about jugging.
What?
We didn't show some jugging.
Oh yeah, I forgot about jugging. So some people look down on jugging, and I really don't get it. Like, I don't know why. I guess it's because some people leave jugs out and they keep all the big giant fish. But like, jugging for catfish can be like one of the most fun ways to get somebody into fishing, or just to go out and have fun. If you drink, a couple of beers with your buddies, just hang out and catch a fish fry. Now, the way we make our jugs, I had to erase my contact information off this because people on the internet are weird stuff out. But we took a PVC pipe and we epoxied it inside this pool noodle, and then we wrap it in a reflective tape, and we took 300-pound cord and attached it to a big giant circle boat. And I have found if you're fishing a new lake and you don't know where the catfish are, or if you don't know if they're in a creek or whatever, if you go out there with 30 or 40 jugs and jug the creek, you're going to know really quickly if they're in there or not. And then after that, you can go back and fish it with rod and reels, or drag it, or whatever you want to do. But when you're jugging for catfish, you got to remember you're going to catch some really big fish doing this, and you got to respect those big giant fishes. They're very rare, and a lot of people are going to go out and jug, and most of the pros don't like to talk about it, but people are still going to do it. And I think you need to tell people who are going to do it that you got to keep the smaller fish if you want to eat them. That's fine, 20 pounds and under, 15 pounds and under, really. But release the bigger fish so they can procreate and make more babies. So you want to go have a really good time. Find one of those creeks like I showed you with spawn time catfish. Put out 20 or 30 of these with fresh pet bait, not chicken livers, not chopped up junk, like real catfish bait. Skipjack, shad, live gizzard shad, or whatever, and just go have a good time. And that's what it's really all about for me, what I'm trying to do. I love going and do this, and I just need to hang out and chill. And yeah, so that's basic to catching big catfish.
Varying the depth on all of them.
Yeah, so like on the jugs you can have some I'll put like 2 or 3 feet deep, and some you'll put 10 or 12 feet deep. And sometimes I'll put the 2-foot deep ones over 30 or 40 feet of water, and they'll get eaten by those kind of catfish. So that just tells us that a lot of people, myself included, are fishing for catfish, and they're just fishing on the bottom a lot of times. We're missing a lot of fish because it's expensive. But that's something I've got to figure out and kind of done yet. So. Yep. So I got. See you guys later.